Joan of Arc. I mean, maiden warrior, saint. Maybe she was even a fashion icon. We are diving deep into her story today.
Yeah, and it's a story that even centuries later, people are still trying to figure out.
Right. It's wild. We've got excerpts from her Wikipedia page, which kind of gives us the overall picture.
Yeah.
But we want to get into, like, the lesser-known stuff, the things that really bring her world to life.
Yeah, for sure.
So, to really get a grasp on Joan's story, we've got to rewind a bit. Back to 15th century France. We're talking about the 100 Years' War.
And this wasn't just some war, it was like this huge thing that had a grip on France, just devastating the economy. You can imagine people were just trying to survive. There were battles and raids everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. So with all of that going on, what was the political climate like?
It was a mess, honestly.
Yeah.
You have the Armagnacs and the Burgundians both convinced they deserved to rule France.
It was like a power struggle for the soul of France.
Totally. And right in the middle of it all, you have Charles VII.
Who, let's be honest, didn't exactly have the strongest claim to the throne.
Right. His legitimacy was always in question. Even his own mother doubted him. Can you imagine that?
Oh, the pressure. And it's during all of this chaos and uncertainty that Joan enters the scene.
Yeah, and let's not forget, she's from Domremy, a village right on the front lines. This wasn't some peaceful little village in the countryside. It was dangerous. They were constantly dealing with raids and violence.
And that makes you think, how much did that environment shape her, especially with the whole divine visions thing?
Right, like was she actually experiencing something supernatural, or was her reality just so intense, so ever-present that it manifested in these visions?
It's so interesting to consider. And it's worth noting that the saints who appeared to her, Michael, Margaret, Catherine, they weren't just random saints. They were powerful figures who stood up against authority, faced persecution, but never wavered in their faith.
Yeah, almost foreshadowing Joan's own path, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. So, driven by these visions, she travels to Chinon to meet Charles VII, convinced she needs to help him become king. But it wasn't like he just welcomed her with open arms, right?
No, definitely not. Can you imagine this young peasant woman shows up claiming she's got divine instructions to crown him king?
It sounds more like a prophecy than a political strategy.
Right. And remember, Charles is already dealing with people questioning his claim to the throne. So Joan's arrival is a little, well, inconvenient.
To put it mildly.
So he does what anyone in his position would do. He investigates her. I mean, thoroughly.
He needed to be absolutely sure about her.
Exactly. He brings in theologians to assess her visions. Are they legit, or is there something else going on? But here's the kicker. They even made her undergo a physical examination to prove her virginity.
Whoa, they went there.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets really interesting because it shows you just how important her virginity was at the time. It was like this whole other layer of proof that she was the real deal. Think about it. Back then, if a woman was a virgin, she was considered pure, untouched.
And that somehow made her a more believable messenger for God.
Precisely. So Joan's entire being, not just her words, became this major factor in this high-stakes game of who gets to rule France. It was about bloodlines, military power, and maybe even more so, it was about what people believed.
It's like this perfect storm of politics, religion, and individual will.
And we haven't even gotten to her military campaigns yet.
I mean, talk about pressure. A country at war, a king struggling to prove he's the rightful heir, and then you have this young woman, Joan, right in the thick of it all, saying, hey, God sent me. So how does she deal with that pressure?
She jumps right in. The Siege of Orleans, that's her moment. The English have been trying to take the city for months. It was on the verge of collapse.
And the Wikipedia article says she helps them break the siege in just 9 days. That's insane.
It's pretty remarkable. Joan shows up with her army, rallies the French troops, and boom, everything changes. Of course, some people say it was just good military strategy,
But it's got to be more than that.
There's definitely more to it. The English were terrified. They started calling her a witch, said she had demonic powers.
Which really makes you think, if she was just using some clever tactics, why go there? It's like they couldn't handle that a young woman was outsmarting them.
Exactly. It wasn't just about battle plans anymore. It was about the whole story. The French, who had been so close to giving up, now they had Joan, a symbol of hope, someone to believe in.
Right, someone who was seemingly chosen by God to lead them.
Yes. And that belief, that energy, carries them through the Loire campaign. They win a bunch of battles, Charles's position becomes more secure. But and this is important, Joan wasn't just some general commanding from afar.
She was in the trenches.
Oh, yeah. There are stories about her on the front lines, scaling walls, getting wounded, but she wouldn't leave her men. She wasn't just talking the talk, she was walking the walk.
Now that's a leader. But the Wikipedia article also talks about the execution of Franguet de Ros. He was a Burgundian soldier.
She was a mercenary.
Right, a mercenary, and she had him executed. That doesn't really fit with the Joan we've been discussing.
It's a complicated situation, one that historians still argue about. Normally, prisoners, especially high-ranking ones like Franquet, they'd be ransomed. But Joan, she let the townspeople execute him.
So what's the explanation?
Some say it was strategic, a way to scare the enemy and show she was serious. Others say it was about divine justice, that she truly believed he deserved it.
It's a side of her we haven't really seen before. And then things take another turn. She gets captured, put on trial. It's tragic.
It's definitely tragic, but also really political. Remember, Joan threatened everything the English were trying to do in France. She was living proof that Charles VII could be king. They had to get rid of her.
The trial was never really about heresy then, was it? It was about silencing her.
Exactly. And there were so many things wrong with that trial. Male guards in the room when they questioned her, they pressured people into saying things, and some records might even be fake. They were determined to erase everything she'd done.
And then she recants her claims, says her visions weren't real, and then she takes it back. What do you even make of that? Was she just trying to survive, or was there something else going on?
It's hard to know for sure, but in the end, it didn't matter. She was burned at the stake when she was only 19.
Yes, heartbreaking. But even after her death, her story didn't end there. She became this legend, a symbol.
Right. And how people view her, it's changed so much over time. Even something as simple as the clothes she wore, it's debated.
Clothes? See, that's something I never really thought about. What's the big deal about her clothes?
Well, it's not so much about the clothes themselves, but more about what they represent. I mean,
Yeah.
some people say it was all about practicality, like wearing armor, dressing like a man. It made sense, especially on the battlefield.
Yeah, it was a different time back then.
Right. It was about survival. Plus, she was commanding men in battle. It probably helped her gain their respect.
So it was kind of like a power move.
In a way, yeah. But some scholars take it even further. They think it was a direct challenge to the way things were supposed to be. Women wearing men's clothes, that was a big no-no back then.
She was making a statement.
Exactly. And for some, it goes even deeper. They say it was about her connection to God, that by wearing men's clothing, she was embodying those masculine aspects of saints like Michael.
Wow, so many different interpretations. It's like every little thing about her life has become this huge discussion. And how people view her, it's changed so much throughout history, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Monarchists, revolutionaries, they've all claimed her as their own. Even in World War II, both sides of the conflict were using her image for propaganda.
That's kind of disturbing, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
she's this historical figure who gets twisted and used to justify all sorts of things.
It's true, but it also shows you just how powerful her story is. People can't help but project their own ideas onto her. But there's this whole other side to this, a question that keeps coming up. What if, and this is just a thought, but what if those visions weren't actually from God?
You're saying, what if she was just a young woman who, for whatever reason, was able to convince everyone that she was chosen?
Exactly. I mean, think about it. It was a crazy time. This war had been going on forever. People were desperate for something to believe in. And Joan, she was young. She was passionate. She truly believed in what she was saying.
So maybe it wasn't about divine intervention, but more about the power of conviction.
Right. The ability of one person with enough belief in themselves and their cause to change the course of history. It makes you wonder how many other times something like that has happened. Someone written off as crazy or a dreamer who ends up changing the world.
It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
So even though we've been diving deep into Joan's life, the politics, the debates, it feels like we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, for sure. And that's what's so amazing about her story. It keeps evolving. There's always something new to discover.
There you have it, another deep dive complete. Thanks for listening. And remember, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and who knows, maybe you'll uncover something incredible too.
Thank you for listening. If you love history, don't forget to subscribe to History with Bree and Peter. Join us for more fascinating stories from the past. Hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode.